On today's World Insight with Tian Wei, we hear from the Californian delegation at the CIIE to see how the Golden State is open for business amid trade tensions. And we speak to the CEO of Mars to see how they fight for sustainability one M&M at a time.
Hello and welcome to a special program of World Insight with me, Tian Wei, coming to you from the second China International Import Expo in Shanghai. The ongoing CIIE are hosting stakeholders from more than 3,000 companies and 150 countries and regions. Besides the federal level, subnational states and provinces are also playing a key part, such as the state of California from the United States. At a time of geopolitical uncertainties, rapid and technological progress, these Californians that I talk to have very clear goals and constructive roadmaps. First, let's meet Phil Ting, California State Assembly member. Mr. Ding, what a pleasure to see you in Shanghai.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for bringing over a big delegation from California. You know, how much do you think local players like you will be able to serve its role as a bridge between China and the U.S.?
Well, California is America's largest state. We're the 5th largest economy in the world, and China is our 3rd largest trading partner. So we believe that China is a very critical economic relationship to us, which is why there's so many of us here today for this very important expo.
I see a lot of them are still waiting for you outside.
Absolutely.
Huge delegation.
Yeah, they're very excited to be here.
But even with the fact that the federal government almost paralyzed the relationship with Beijing?
Yeah. Unfortunately, California and Washington, D.C. have had numerous disagreements over the last couple of years. And we remain committed to many of our friends, like China. We can remain committed to that very strong trading partnership. We have a lot of goods that come through our ports, whether it's textiles, agriculture, technology. Those are all very important goods that we continue to trade, and we look forward to having a very strong relationship and friendship.
So how does that work when so much pressure from Washington is talking about quote-unquote decouple?
Well, we have a very
what does that mean to you?
You know, we have a very different philosophy. So in Washington right now, there's a certain effort to build walls. In California, we build bridges. And we continue to welcome not just people from around the country, but people from around the world to come to California, and that includes our friends from China.
But that wall could also have an impact on a state like California.
Absolutely.
You have federal policies. So how to deal with those?
Well, for us, we remain very opposed to that wall. For us in California, we are here because California and China remain very strong trading partners. And we also continue to exchange knowledge, exchange people, exchange goods, and we want to keep that relationship very strong.
But what about the immigration policy? What about technological, so-called decoupling, which California is a big hub of technology from the United States. You also have a lot of Asian Americans working there as well, also immigrants from other parts of Asia as well. So, and other issues, education, for example. So, when the wall was, in a way, being built, how are you going to topple that wall?
We have a Democratic Congress that continues to fight every day to ensure that that wall doesn't get built. And we have an election coming up next year, so the American people get to make a statement about whether they want to continue the disastrous policies of the last 2.5 years, or they want to go in a different direction. And so I think that we believe that they will go in a different direction, more the California direction.
But you know, a lot of people have this thought here in China that there are partisan consensus between the two political parties in the United States about how they want to deal with China, mainly all as a strategic rival. Do you think so?
Yeah, I don't think there is a consistent amount of thinking. Obviously, you know, all I can speak is from California's perspective. Sure. I can't really speak from Washington.
That's
I'm not
good
there.
Enough.
Yeah, I don't
we know
really.
About what Washington is
we don't really have much affiliation with Washington, frankly, and Washington really hasn't been doing anything to help California. In fact, California gives Washington a lot of money, and they don't really give it back. So again, we are very focused on what we can do positively as a state. That's why we're here, to make sure that our friends know that we continue to have a strong relationship. Now, we continue to fight and speak up against many of those things that you talked about, whether it's immigration, education. We continue to welcome many overseas Chinese to our universities in California. In terms of immigration, we continue to push strong immigration policies which welcome people from around the world. That's frankly the American philosophy. We don't think that should really change. And really in terms of technology, technology is a very complex issue. Some of it is tinged with national security. Some of it is tinged with different types of making sure that there is technology that is, can be shared and can be traded. And other times it has national security implications. So those are issues that we don't really get involved in.
But sometimes people say whether Washington today is putting too much emphasis on so-called national security without giving out a real interpretation as to what exactly it is, and therefore the other parties can deal with them while putting the concept of it inside. So what do you make of that?
Well, there's a complete lack of transparency going on in Washington right now. So it's really difficult to tell whether an item really is national security or whether it's just someone protecting their own personal interests. And so obviously we leave that up to the hands of our capable representatives in Washington, our senators, our representatives, and we really look to them to take that lead.
But time is precious, right? You can't wait for them to resolve the problem. So on the other side, what can you do together with the others in your state?
Well, talk is cheap. That's why action speaks loudly. We're here. That is an action. And again, we continue to welcome people to the United States to California from our behalf.
But Phil, we go back home, you are not afraid of political attack against you, say, oh, why is he in China for such a long time? China is already our America's strategic rival. Why is he bringing such a big delegation? Well, what if our national security is under threat? Are you afraid of these kind of attacks against you personally?
Not
and
at
also
all.
About what you're doing?
Yeah, not at all, because I come from San Francisco. San Francisco has a very large Chinese-American population. We're here as part of a Bay Area Council delegation, which is the San Francisco Bay Area. Also has a very large Chinese-American population, and that really region is very proud of the history that it's had with China, both going back over 150 years, and the strong cultural presence of Chinese Americans in the area.
Yeah, Phil, what about the world? I mean, California is such an open state. You have people from all over the world. But what's going on with our world? For example, people say about anti-globalization, unilateralism, populism. These are isms. It sounds abstract, but it's not, because it's with us. We see that in daily life.
Yes.
To you, what does that mean as a politician?
Well, to me, as a public official, there is fear. There's a lot of fear in our middle class, our working class. You have people who have been working very hard. They work one or sometimes two jobs, and they don't feel like they're making enough money to have a home, to pay for their car,
so exactly
to really pay for
wrong?
food. Well, our economy is not evenly distributing money. We have people at the very highest income brackets making a lot of money, and we have people who are everyone else who aren't doing as well. And so I think even in a state like California, where we have a very large economy, very prosperous economy, we continue to take that very seriously and to look at how we can do better.
China and the United States are in negotiations, particularly about how to resolve trade issues, so-called phase one.
Yes.
Now, are you optimistic or quite neutral in terms of what could be the outcome?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because if you listen to both sides, they seem like they have very different positions.
And they're very careful.
Yes, they are very careful. So I'm always an optimist. So I always believe that if people come to the negotiating table with real interest in compromise, then we can always reach it. Since I'm not in the room, I don't really know how both sides are handling it, but I'm always optimistic that if you have two reasonable parties, they can always reach a compromise.
But it's going to have a huge impact on California.
Oh, it already has. Yeah, we've seen imports and exports have a significant impact. Our business...
In what way? Going up or down?
It's gone down, absolutely. I mean, we see it in our ports where it's gone down. We see it impacting our agricultural businesses, many of our businesses up and down the state. manufacturing. So again, it's taken it's been very bad for California, no question.
What is the contingency plan?
Contingency plan, it's like anything. The only thing you can guarantee in life is things change, and that you have to continue to advocate for your position, and we're going to keep pushing for what we believe is right.
Phil, some say we live in a world of hope. Others say we are really living in a world of fear. From your perspective, what is the nature of California and the future that you are looking at right now?
Well, California has always been a state that looks to the future. We are a state that really helps create the future. California is oftentimes the first state to do something in our country and really lead the way, both for better or for worse. And I think we continue to attract people from around the world because we're a place of aspiration, we're a place of hope. And hope will always trump fear. And so we hope that we can continue to inspire the people who are scared and who are worried about their future, that there is hope in the California dream and the American dream, and that we can ensure that they have a better life.
Is there a hope? Will hope also trump fear in terms of California's relations with China?
Well, there is no fear right now, I believe, with California's relationship with China. I think California's relationship with China continues to be strong. If you look at all of our state leaders and our leadership, we've been very consistent in wanting to foster a very positive, strong relationship.
Phil, what a pleasure seeing you here at CIIE. Thank you so much for taking our time out of busy schedule.
Thank you for having me today. It's
really
great to be here.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Innovation is identified as the key to growth in California. As it is a hub of innovative companies, it's a rich land attracting and nurturing the best talents from around the world. John Rupp, Bay Area Council Chief Operating Officer, has more to say about that and how China and the United States can still cooperate together despite of the uncertainties in the technological fields. Mr. Grubb, what a pleasure.
Thank you, Wei. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Representing multinational companies, particularly technology companies around the world, is not an easy thing, but that's exactly what you're doing.
That's right. That's what we're here doing, yeah. We're actually bringing some new technology companies here to China at CIIE.
What type?
Well, the one that's really fascinating is called Impossible Burger. And so it's in a way, it's a biotech company, and in a way, it's an agricultural company. And so they have a product that is a replacement for meat. Then they actually make hamburgers, and it's been really successful in the United States. And a lot of the fast food chains have it, and so now they're talking about bringing it here to China. And so we've been talking to the Ministry of Agriculture, and then we've been serving Impossible meat at our booth.
Well, I'm sure there's a big crowd over there.
There's a very big crowd, very happy crowd.
Yeah, it's like a cross of so many different kinds of new technology development, all at the same time. So the really magic is how to bring them together and make something that's never been there before.
Right, yeah. So you have examples of Tesla, and then we have it with biotech companies as well.
Yeah.
And then phone companies or other hardware companies, lots of new technology coming from the Bay Area.
Yeah. So will there be competition, between China and the Greater Bay Area in a way to attract all of these international companies? You think about Tesla, it's only 10 months they are talking about this miracle.
Right. So there's so many parts that are made in a piece of hardware. Some comes from China, some comes from Vietnam, some comes from California, and so a technology product, an iPhone, is a perfect example of the global economy and how we can all work together to make incredible things happen.
It sounds simple, yet under the current circumstances, it's not really that simple, isn't it?
Very challenging.
Global supply chain is being challenged, global value chain as well, geopolitics. How do you reconcile all of these moving factors while you are making decisions and trying to promote businesses?
This is a very difficult time. We're very hopeful that a trade deal will be announced next week. But all of these companies and my organization and so many others have been trying to build relationships over the years to make incredible products, to bring a comparative advantage that we have in California or a comparative advantage that's here in China, to benefit our people either way. And so a lot of that is still happening, even though we have these difficulties, but there's no question.
Earlier, we've seen some of tech companies coming from the United States having some challenges to tap into the Chinese market.
Sure.
But also now we see Chinese companies, even social media ones, having some challenges tapping into the U.S. market.
Right.
And is now bringing to the level of CFIUS even when it comes to how they can work on a bilateral cooperation, some of the deals even reached earlier. So, Mr. Grubb, how do you see this reality, this part of reality?
It's not that we don't think it's the way to go in the future. We don't think it's the way to go right now. So there's a couple of examples that have really benefited California of Chinese companies if they came to California.
Give me some examples.
Okay, so the makers of solar panels, so Trina, BYD, and many others, actually produced a lot of solar panels and dramatically brought down the cost of solar panels for California. And so the installation rate and our energy supply from solar panels went from about 0 to about 14% in the course of a few years. Global warming is really important in California because, as you may know, both the northern part and the southern part are burning right now because our forests have dried out due to global warming. And so that's a great product that came to us, but now, of course, the trade challenges we're having have sort of blocked Chinese solar panels from coming in. Another one is BYD, which makes electric buses. So now our biggest source of emissions in California is cars and public transit systems. And so BYD is making battery-powered electric buses that both our public sector and our private sector are buying for their employees to be able to get around. The Google bus and Genentech has bought BYD. And so these are products that are coming from China that are still coming into China and are benefiting Californians right now. But the trade challenges have really made it hard for these companies to succeed, and we don't think that's good.
But what can you do, really? I mean, your job is trying to figure out a way, or shall I say, you fight a way out.
So what we do as an organization is we put pressure on everybody. So we go to Washington, D.C., we meet with the U.S. trade rep, we meet with our senators, and we put pressure to stop the tariffs and the trade war that's going on. And now we're here and we're meeting in Beijing, and we're displaying at CIIE in order to try and apply pressure on this side to go to our better angels. What we know is to take advantage of our comparative advantages that we have in the United States and that are in China, so that we can bring better products and better prices to everybody. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to just fight for that.
You say, let's bring out the competitive advantages and edges and bring them together. And the two economies could be complementing toward one another.
Of course they can. That's the story. That's the story of civilization. Yes.
The story of civilization. But that's probably
trade.
They say in the U.S. today would say that's only for the state of California. It might not for the states in the Midwest.
No, they wouldn't say that.
Yeah?
They wouldn't. If you talk to farmers in Iowa or people that sell products in Georgia or Texas, everywhere, they want to sell to China. They know how important this is.
So what are we fighting for? Here's the thing, isn't it?
It's crazy. It's crazy. Now, there have been some tensions that have come up. You know, some of our companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and many others are not able to operate in China. So there have been some problems and some legitimate concerns about operating here. And so some of those concerns maybe have gotten overblown or really blown up into a big situation. But our hope is that strife will now settle down into a really good trade deal, and we can keep doing more trade deals and get to an even better place than we were before the troubles. Another
part of your job is to bring in the best talents from all over the world in a way. So how do you see the process so far? What is the best way to help to nurture these talents and bring them in?
Well, there's two ways. So we can grow them ourselves. Grow them is the wrong word. We can educate them.
That word,
we can educate people very well in the United States. And we have great institutions of higher learning. We have Stanford, Berkeley, and so many other campuses or colleges that are there. And then we can let the most talented people in the world come to the Bay Area in order to make their best products there and build their dreams there. We also want them, though, to come to China. We want them to come to Shanghai and Beijing and all the other cities throughout China to learn about the culture, to learn the language, to understand the different traditions that are here, and use their talents here, but then come back to the Bay Area. So we want a cross flow of executives and students we think that that's the best way to build the strongest economy.
Why is it that important to come to this part of China?
People as smart as they are in the United States have no idea what's going on here. Every time they come here, their eyes are open so wide, and their mind is open so wide about what happens with high-speed rail trains, the architecture, just so many aspects of what's happening here in China, and it changes their opinion instantly, within about 2 days. And then they come back, and then they're advocates for a better relationship between China and the United States. I've seen it happen over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it happens the other way, too, when Chinese executives or government officials come to visit the Bay Area or other parts of the United States, too.
Do you think, since you are working with the tech companies a lot, will there be decoupling, they say, between China and the United States in terms of technology?
No, that won't happen. I can see that happening for the next year, but I cannot see that happening for the next decade.
Explain.
There's just too much good products, and there's too much pressure for them to be able to apply the good products that are coming from the United States and from California,
or
with the
from
good
China.
Products that are coming from China. And they have to work together, and you can't stop that from happening, I don't believe.
You don't think politics could do that?
No, no. I think that the politics will ultimately reflect the pressure from the business community and from the people of the two countries.
Before we go, I do want to ask you another question. That is, you see industry policies being developed from China. You also see some look at that as an issue from the U.S. perspective. How do you, representing some of the biggest companies operating in Greater Bay Area, both American companies and now increasingly Chinese companies, at least over the past few years, how do you see that back?
Well, I think what we would want to do, so industry policies are being developed in China. What we would want to do is share our point of view with those that are developing industry policies to make sure that the policies they're developing can take advantage of the best built in China, but also built in our part of the world or other parts of the world. So it's not a major problem for us. It's actually, maybe it's helpful in that it simplifies who you need to talk to and what you need to shape in terms of the policy that's coming out in China.